Sage Hills Elementary. The comment that I had was that the neighborhood is, and I actually had an email from the city, which I really appreciate. I appreciate the detail of how that was decided, the development's already been decided. The question I had was if there's any opportunity to also include with the decision-making on this development to have a little bit things that go along with the development also in consideration. One is improving Redwood Road down to that area, as well as the Mountain View corridor, and I know this is not necessarily this council, but also the schools in that area are quite overcrowded already, but we're adding a new neighborhood in that area, as well as other development, of course. So those are my concerns. And my concern was first the density of the development down there, but I understand that was already decided. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Any response to that, or just I can't?
Public input is not normally a dialogue.
Okay, all right.
We do have your comments on the record.
Okay, comments on the record, and with that density, it is another concern is the public transit down that area. It seems like density would be more appropriate, though I know this is already cited, more appropriate during the city center where there's a lot more like public transit or other facilities for that type of density, but down with that area we have that right now, so it's a concern with that. Also, the height of some of the buildings is a concern. Is that they could have a view of the lake, which is great, but also a view of all the other single-family homes in the area. So a little bit different than the current community in that area. Okay. That's my concerns.
Thank you.
Yeah. So and I guess the next step would be, I know some have decided, but also to think about as part of that development how we improve the city in that area to absorb that development. Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Is anybody else here for public input? Okay. I will close public input at this time. We'll go to reports. We are tonight, because of conflicts in timing, we're going to pull item 2, amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code, City of Saratoga Springs sign regulation, to the next meeting. Kevin, do we need a motion to move that to the next meeting, or can we just pull it? Okay, perfect.
Okay, that's, I don't think your rules state either way, so you're fine.
Okay.
Another one, I think.
Okay, anything from the council? Councilman Wilden?
On the Title 19, the sign code, I just want to make sure we address like signs within private property on HOAs. The code is kind of silent. We haven't really enforced it the way it was being enforced for about 20 years based upon the interpretation. I know that's not ready to go today, but like I want to make sure HOAs on common property have the same rights as a homeowner. And I don't think they need additional rights and be able to put hundreds of signs up, but they should have the same rights, and we shouldn't be going on private property that's owned by residents and pulling them down.
Okay. Councilman Wadman?
Yeah, so I don't know if she's here, Laura. I don't see her. Oh, there's her. She was recognized by Congressman Owen yesterday up at the Capitol, Laura Benvenuto. And I want to say congratulations, and I know I don't speak for the entire city, but I was very impressed.
Recognized for what?
For Hispanic
come up to the
recognition.
podium.
It was a Hispanic recognition by Congressman Owen.
Come up to the podium.
So not that we want to put you on the spot, but
But you are.
You are.
yeah, we are.
Just came in out of school, sorry. Thank you.
But tell us, if you want, we have pictures and stuff, but it was a good opportunity to go up to the Capitol, and Owen was there, and there was about 20, 30 other people there that were recognized all over District 4, Congressional District 4, so
Thank you.
it was pretty neat. And so tell us how you got to where you are, I guess, or how did you get recognized? And
Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am from Venezuela. I came to the United States in 2015 with my kids. I stayed as a single mom for a few years, and then I went to college back in Venezuela, and I was a teacher back there. So when I came here, I found a job as a teacher, middle school, and then I moved to Harriman, and then I was hired to start a dual immersion program in Bluffdale Summit Academy, where I do work right now. So I've been there for 4 years, 8 years teaching here in the U.S. It's been such an honor to be able to teach my own language, my native language, which I love. And I feel blessed, really, to be in the United States. Last year, I became a citizen, which I feel super proud and grateful. So yeah, that's basically my story. I'm the mom of 3 boys. They are back there. And 1 little boy who has Down syndrome, which is our entire life. And we adore him. And yes, we're very lucky to be here. We moved a year ago to Saratoga Springs. So we are happy and blessed. Thank you.
It was just, it was pretty awesome seeing.
Missed it. We do the Pledge of Allegiance every time. A little bit late.
We do it in Spanish every day. Yeah, which is pretty cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being part of our community.
Thank you.
And representing us well.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman McComber?
So just, I've been trying to keep patient, but we need to get the striping on Commerce Boulevard. That road has been repaved for a long time, and it becomes a real nightmare when getting onto Redwood Road especially. You have all the people coming out of Vasa, Chubby's, even City Hall, and everyone's there, and they don't realize that it's wide enough for a turn lane, a straight lane, there's no striping whatsoever. And it's very confusing. The striping is done on the other side, but not on the east side of Redwood Road. So just if we can talk to the vendor and make sure we get that done right away. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Barton?
So this is actually kind of the same area. So over by Chubby's and that area right there, there's lights over by Vasa, but it's when you're walking from wherever you're at out to your car, it's pitch black. And so I don't know if there's supposed to be lights there or kind of what the requirement is for that area. I don't know if they're out. I couldn't see any like street lamps. I saw a couple lights on the building, but they were out. And so I don't know if it's the developer, whoever builds the building. I don't know if it's, down from Vasa, by Chubby's and stuff like that. Yeah, so like it was dark when I was walking from where I was to the car.
There's been a problem there, and that's something we really should.
Yeah, and it's actually, it really is not safe for somebody to walk in that area after dark. It was very, very dark. So anyway, I didn't know what we were supposed to have there and if it's just because those lights on the building aren't working, if there's supposed to be other lights there or not. But anyway, also,
Lights are missing.
yeah.
The parking lot lights are missing.
Yeah. Also, this is kind of stemming from this a little bit, and what Stephen had said, when it comes to code enforcement from the city, what is it when it comes to like an HOA? Do they, because just for example, like there's some homes in Harvest Hills that have junk all over their yard. I know that's not allowed by city code, but I don't know if, does that oversee HOA? Like same as signs and stuff like that, how does that happen?
So if you wanted to shoot me an email, we could pass it on to the staff and get it to them, and they could go ahead
Okay.
and take a look at it. So
Yeah, I just wasn't sure who was in charge, if we had an HOA. I know everything's an HOA, so it's hard to know what
No, we can
happens.
still, code enforcement still.
Can still do that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, both.
okay, perfect, thanks.
This is really nice.
This is
by the
great,
way.
yeah, this is really great, thank you.
Then, really quick, one last comment. Appreciate the council taking the time when one of our residents doing the Through Your Eyes tour came through Saratoga Springs, riding from Idaho to Kanab to raise awareness and abilities for blind cyclists and the tandem bike. They're heading into southern Utah when I checked last. They were looking for pilots in southern Utah area. They've had a great experience stopping along cities along the way. Westlake High School mountain bike team skipped their pre-race practice because Josh is one of their own. And so they chose that as a priority to be with Josh to ride him in from Bluffdale into Saratoga Springs.
And they made it into Saratoga Springs.
They did. They made it into Saratoga Springs. They took the Murdoch Canal trails. It was really neat to see a 19-year-old facing this with such hope for the future and positivity with everything he was doing. So I appreciate the council taking the time to come and meet with him and share a little bit about our city. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for bringing it.
Yeah, that was great.
Mark, anything from administration?
We do have need for a closed session tonight. A
Okay.
couple of quick items. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have closed session. I will entertain a motion on consent items.
So made.
I have a first from Councilman McComber, second from Councilman Carn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have business items. Are we good to go? Okay. We'll start with business item 1, Fox Hollow Neighborhood 4 PUD concept plan.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. I do have, the developer is here, so I'd invite them to come up while I present this. Let me see if this will work, maybe. There we go. Okay, so Fox Hollow Neighborhood 4 is it's a concept plan. Concept plans don't typically come to City Council, but because it's in a PUD, planned unit development, that's the reason why it does come here. So it comes for feedback on the concept plan, but a PUD also allows what we call variations. And so there are some requests. Slide it on. There we go. Okay, it's working. All right, so just for those that aren't familiar with the area, this is in between Village Parkway and Wildlife Boulevard. So it's that empty piece of land there, and we already had a public comment tonight on this area. This is the concept plan that they're proposing. It comprises of 172 single-family units, 136 townhomes, for a total unit count of 308. They have approved MDAs, which allows them to go up to 335 total units. So this is actually below the total unit count that they're allowed per the MDA. And also the MDA allows them to go up to 136 townhomes, which is what they are currently proposing on this plan. The concept plan does propose lots with reduced widths. This is common in a PUD because the purpose of the PUD is to protect the hillsides and the open space, and so we encourage clustering. And when you do that, it's typical to see narrower lots. These are some elevations of the townhomes that they're proposing. You can see that the townhomes are back to back, so there's townhomes on one side and then townhomes on the other. And if you look at the bottom left image, the way that some of these townhomes will be built or at least they're proposing, is that it would be built on separate grades. So like the back units would be up on a higher grade than the lower units. And so the buildings kind of step like this. And here's kind of a rendering of what that looks like. You can kind of see how it's up on a higher grade in the back and then lower grade on the bottom part there. And so in addition with the concept plan that they're proposing, they're also requesting some variations. So as mentioned, they're requesting a variation on the lot width to go from 70 feet down to 40 feet, and then lot size to go from 10,000 square feet to 4,200 square feet. So those are standards in the R110 zone, but because, again, it's in the PUD, those are typical things that might be granted. The other request that they have is a request on maximum height. So they have two requests here. They're saying either A or B. They're hoping for one or the other. Preferably, they are asking that height be measured differently than we outline in Title 19. So they're requesting that we measure the height from the front of the building, and so on those split units, you would measure the height from the bottom unit up to see where it is, and then you'd go around on the other side and measure the height from there.
Do we currently measure from the midpoint and the side?
Yeah, so the way that we currently do it, the way the code is if we flip this, it's probably better to look at this side image. Actually, here is an image, okay. So from the side here, you can see those red lines. That's how we would measure it in code. And so we draw a line through it and just say you can't be taller than that top red line. And so they're requesting it,
The midpoint, like.
yeah, and that would be the midpoint of the roof.
My comment was right.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and so the only time we'd measure to the top of the roof would be if it was a flat roof structure. But on a sloped roof, it's to the midpoint of the roof. So their request is either to measure the height from the front of the building, or if we're not willing to do that, then their other request would be to have an exception, essentially, to allow a height of up to 41 feet, 6 inches. So the standard in that zone is 35 feet in the R110 zone. And so they request, if we don't measure it the other way, then they would request that we grant them a 6 foot, 6 inch.
Can you flip back to your last picture?
I want to clarify for you.
Yeah.
For the flat roof product.
Which picture did you want me to?
Well, it had the red angled line.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Where's 41.6 it on that?
It doesn't show.
my
So-
understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the pitched, so we're not quite through the presentation, but there's 2 products they're proposing. One is a flat roof product. If that's not amenable and approved, then the pitched roof product is what they would propose, and that could meet code the way it's shown?
Well,
No.
not
Oh,
necessarily.
so you still need the
no.
height measurement, okay. Okay, I'll let them get into it. The applicant has a presentation as well, but we'll keep going through ours and then they can give theirs.
Yeah. So, and that leads to the final variation request, which is they have a flat roof version of this plan here that they would like to request approval of. And so these are some elevations of what that would look like. And you can see it here from the side. One of the key features of this would be that they would have living space on the roof. So there would be kind of a patio or a deck on top of the building.
What's the height of that product?
Yeah, so the height on these, if you measure it to the midpoint, it would be the 41.6 to the highest point of the flat roof structure. So they could make either, with that height exception, they could make this flat product work. But one of the things it would give them, it would give you the additional living space. Now, these units, they don't have so because it's back-to-back, as I mentioned earlier, they don't have a yard, like a backyard, so it would provide some kind of living space for the townhome residents.
Austin, real quick, has Jess looked at the building height on this one? Fire? I know typically the residential height is, what, closer to 33 or 35 feet?
35 to the midpoint of the.
Right. So my only question is has he reviewed these for height relative to fire response and things of that nature?
We haven't asked him to.
Okay.
Yeah, we did, we looked at these in DRC, but we haven't.
The only reason I bring that up is it would require probably a ladder truck if there were a structure fire. And we have one, but it's a longer response time.
Okay, let me see if there's anything else. So, yeah, so you can see, I just want to go back to this image one more time. So the red lines would be kind of the established grade. So we measure from basically what the grade is of the site right now. So we don't want to make them build it up the land and go much higher than what it currently is today. Yeah, we don't allow that in our code. So that's kind of what these red lines represent. So we don't want them to go too high above that red line is essentially what our codes.
So is this red line, is this with the pitched roof, it's gonna be that far above the red line? Or is that just with the flat roof?
Yeah, so you have to remember there's 2 things here. So on a pitched roof, we measure it to the midpoint of the roof.
Yeah, the midpoint, that's right.
So it's normal for it to go a little bit above that line, but if it goes more than the midpoint, then they're kind of in trouble, basically. So as long as they can keep it under that, then it meets they can make it meet our code. So those are the requests. The applicant has prepared a presentation. If the council is so willing, they would like to give that presentation tonight. Okay. You can just do it from here, yeah, or whatever more comfortable.
David Crockett on behalf of the applicant, Pulte Homes, 6965 Fort Union Center in Cottonwood Heights. First of all, on behalf of Pulte, we're delighted to be here. This is the first time we're actually submitting an application to the city of Saratoga Springs. So we're really excited about that. We're hoping it's the first of many opportunities that we'll have to address you. If I may, just for a second, Pulte Homes is a large public home builder. We're third largest in the country. We're making a market entry into Utah. Our founder, Bill Pulte, started the home building company 74 years ago and has built a great reputation. He's since passed, but our current CEO is actually from Lake Point out there by Tooele, born and raised, and then as a graduate of University of Utah. In case that's concerning to anyone, I'm a graduate of BYU, so there's a little bit of balance for everyone. But some of you may be fans, so there we go. There we go, good balance. So thank you again for the opportunity to present before you today. We have, in June of 2022, this board, or maybe some makeup similar to this board, would have approved a concept plan that had this site plan on it, on this very site. So that site plan back in 2022 had 136 townhomes and 172 single-family homes. We've matched that with our site plan. One innovation that you'll see is this townhome product, where we've taken the townhomes and we've made them back-to-back, and then we put a step in the building. That allows us to be responsive to the grade, which is one of the code requests in the code. They want us to step down the side of topography when we can. And when we do that, we actually take all of the buildings that you see there with the blue background, the white that has the blue around it that goes up the side of the development there. There's 29 buildings that are represented there. And if you think about all that building mass, we actually consolidate all that into 17 buildings. These buildings here on this map are also 6 units wide, so they're quite a bit wider than our buildings, which are only 4 buildings wide. So if you were just to drive through the community, if it were to be built out in this scenario versus the scenario that we're proposing, which I'll show you on the screen now, you would see there are far fewer buildings, and then the mass or the width of those buildings is narrower overall, while we still maintain the same unit count. This also actually helps us be much more responsive to the existing terrain. Most home builders, and their civil engineers, if they're doing a good job, try to match or balance the cut and fill on a particular job site. And we are very close to doing that here on this site. On average, our cut and fill is about 1.5 feet. And along where the townhomes are, kind of our worst condition is 3 to 4 feet of cut or fill in any one location. And as you can imagine, on a site as large as this one, we have going from Swainston, which is at the top of the screen, as you come down to where the townhomes are adjacent to that future commercial, there's over 70 feet of drop in that dimension. And so we're working against that situation. And then when you go from north to south, it's not just perfectly flat. There's actually pockets where the ground undulates like that. That's an important thing to point out, which we'll get to.
Right by the park, the park's right above it. Yeah.
Yep, it's across the street from that park.
Reference, yeah.
Perfect, yeah, thank you. In terms of the master development agreement, it is that Fifth Amendment that specifies the 136 townhomes. It also specifies the 335 total units, as was pointed out previously. We are submitting for something that's less than that, the 308 total units. We're also designing and going to be meeting all of the setbacks that are called out in the Second Amendment of that MDA. So consistent with both of those. Our single-family detached architecture, these are images from the front of the buildings. We have 40-foot wide lots, 50-foot wide lots, and 60-foot wide lots. These lot widths in the MDA were allowed to go down to as little as 35 foot of width. And so the developed community that's already out there has lots that are smaller than the lots we're proposing, and some that are larger, because you can go as large as you want effectively. And so some mix of all of that, and these lot sizes fit within that master plan and that MDA. We're also designing our product and coordinating with the village's HOA ARC review committee on all of this product. And so that'll be, those permits and those approvals are actually done on a lot by lot basis. So that's later on down the road as we're building the homes, but we've started that process already. As you've seen, we have this townhome. It has four-sided architecture because you have front entrances on both sides of the building, and then you've got this articulation around the building. So we have the benefit of all sides of the building having a nice architectural elevation. And then you can see the step in the building there in this side profile view. So now we get to the nuance and the kind of the request, the core or the key request that we have tonight. One of the challenges is if this were as simple as measure 35 feet from the foundation of the building to the top of the building, we would meet that. Our building is actually 34 feet, 6 inches tall. It's shorter than the 35-foot requirement. Where we get into the difficulty is we don't actually measure in code from Title 19. We don't measure from finished grade where the site actually gets finished, where people will be walking on the sidewalk, looking at the architecture, or driving through the community, seeing the building. That dimension's actually measured from where the grade is today. And so even though that grade will change, we could grade down, obviously, and then meet all of our buildings and not make any changes whatsoever. Or we could grade the site up and have all kinds of problems, right? Again, we're trying to be in that as close to the existing grade as we can possibly be. And so what we see here is that brown line on the screen is that line on the very bottom. That green line on the bottom would be finished grade. So in scenarios where we might be grading 3 to 4 feet max, as we make sure that sewer flows the right way and drainage flows across this huge site, that all the life safety elements and requirements are met, that we're going from the grade and access point from Swainson up on the top of our site, connecting into the commercial site and meeting all the code requirements for how those streets, can slope down and connect into those locations. As we kind of run all that complicated math, where we run into this issue is that we're not measuring from this finished grade, which is what we would really hope we'd be able to do. So I'm gonna keep going to show a couple of other exhibits. It would appear to us that the intent of the way that was defined would have been to protect existing homes where you have maybe a vacant lot in between them from the house that you see on the bottom of the screen there in the middle from being built, right? If you've got a community where they're all two-story homes, then someone comes in and tries to build some monstrosity, that would certainly seem to be not very favorable. So the code, the way it's drafted, would address that. It would also address the same size home, but someone who wants to try to take advantage by building their lot up for some.
Allow that, but yeah.
Right, I mean, but the concept is there, right? Again, oddly enough, the picture on the bottom in the middle would be allowed, actually. That would be code compliant, the way that's drafted if you dug your home down. So again, just kind of looking here at the site plan, the next image that I'll show you is actually our cut and fill. And what you'll see is just colors that go on this site, red and blue. Red is a cut location, blue is a fill location. And as you look down there along the townhomes, you can see that from the north, there's just pockets where the ground goes like this. And we're just smoothing that out. And in some areas, that's 2 to 4 feet. In other areas, it's a 2 to 4 foot cut as we smooth all of that out to make it work. And so that creates a little bit of an issue. Even though when it's finished grade and you've got that line there on the bottom, when you're standing in front of the building, our building is actually less than the 35-foot requirement at 34 feet 6 inches. Because the terrain is sloping down and we have fill in some areas, that area in yellow represents that 2 to 4 feet in a maximum situation. Which is having the effect in the middle of the building of pushing that building up and making it feel taller, even though when we're out there, when the whole thing is graded and it's built, it won't look that way. It's actually from the existing grade today, which won't exist in the future. And so we would measure, we have a challenge in that area that's causing some constraints for us with that 35 feet. And then when you get to the top there of the building, you can see that the way that measurement is made is it's from existing grade. So on that top red line that you're saying, it actually slopes and follows the terrain of the property. But the challenge is homes are rectangular shaped, right? So these homes aren't even that deep, but will meet the requirement at the front of the unit. But by the time you get to the back of the unit, because that 35-foot height measurement has to keep stepping down, to be consistent with existing grade, then we run into a challenge there. And so it's as simple as if we were willing to say, hey, we'll measure the 35 feet, which is the requirement, but it's from the front of each unit, then it'd be totally fine for us. And that would be what we would be requesting today, is to measure, to allow the maximum 35-foot height measurement to be taken from finished grade at the front of each unit, and not from the established grade is the technical term, or the existing grade today. As a side note, and I'm not sure if those images are in this, oh, they're not, okay. As a side note, just as a reference point, single-family detached has a different set of standards that apply to it in the way that they measure. We had some slides in here that helped depict this, but on a walkout basement, you have a house at the front that might be a 2-story home. On the back of that house, where there's a walkout basement, you have a 3-story home. And if you were to measure from the footing or foundation there to the midpoint of that roof on almost every home, and in the homes that are to the north of us and to the south of us, that dimension is probably 41 to 43 feet. Those are existing homes that are in the neighborhood right now. But all of those homes are also on fill lots. So as the builder has developed, whether it was Richmond or anyone else, as they've developed those lots, they've created fill on those lots. Some of them are 12 to 15 feet of fill. And so if they were held to the same standard as the townhomes, those homes would be 50 feet in the air by comparison to what we're doing. I only bring that up and point that out because the buildings that we're proposing here, even though it sounds like we're asking for this height variance, they're gonna appear shorter than the backs of these walkout basements on the single-story homes that are all around to the north and to the south of us and to the west of us. They're all building on the same slope. We have pictures that depicted that and show that. And so I just would point that out, that these buildings in this request is actually visually going to appear shorter than those adjacent buildings. They're just measured differently, the way that works through state code. Whereas we have to adhere to this existing grade standard that is really tough in this particular situation. So that is, that's our first key request, is with regard to the townhomes, would be to have the 35 feet, if that's something that would be amenable to the council, to allow that to be measured from finished grade at the front of the building, which is where everyone will see the building, right? That's where they'll walk on the sidewalks and drive on the streets. And then when we were at Planning Commission didn't seem to like that. They proposed a different idea, which would be to just increase the building height from 35 feet to 41 feet 6 inches. It's a different way of saying the same thing, basically. It's much harder for us to create that measurement because we have to demonstrate where all the existing grade is today and be able to prove that in the future versus just the building's built with the finished grade and anyone can measure the 35 feet. It's much easier, which is why we would prefer it to be the 35 feet from finished grade at the front of the building, but we would be amenable to what Planning Commission had suggested, because that would also work. So that was the first key request. I don't know if it's appropriate to pause here for questions or to keep going, because we do have one other one. How would you like me to proceed?
Just keep going.
Keep going, okay. So the second request has to do with the indoor-outdoor living, and highlighted in yellow here in the middle of the screen for the two plans that we have in our townhome lineup. We have indoor-outdoor living on that main level, which is really important, especially, obviously we have amenity space and open space in the community that people can access. But when you have a townhome, it's really key and important to have that indoor-outdoor living. So all of our units will have that. What we would propose, because of the location, where you have these views that are across the lake, where you have the views that are across on the other side, you've got the Wasatch Front Mountains there, kind of sweeping views of all of that. Really an opportunity to showcase the city's topography and beauty of its location. Kind of unique all along the Wasatch Front is what Saratoga Springs has here. We think that a townhome with a flat roof that would accommodate a deck up on the roof would be something that homeowners, that residents would really appreciate. As a technical matter, you can see the building mass there on the bottom left. That's a stairwell to get someone up to that roof location. And so that stairwell in the middle of the building is the only area where we have that height problem. On the fronts of the building, it's actually shorter than the roof line of our pitched roof layout. So again, if someone was walking through the community, if the council was to view this favorably, they would see architectural variations. They'd be able to see more than just one type of building. And then they would see, differing roof lines as you go down the street. We think that that's appealing. We think that the rooftop decks would appeal to many buyers, many prospective residents of Saratoga Springs. Again, if the council does not want to support this, we understand. And the sloped roof product we're very happy to build that product exclusively as well. But we think there is an advantage to be gained here. You can see here highlighted in yellow, the rooftop deck locations are actually the way that the way we try to design these is so that they're kind of separate and apart. So there's some privacy to the individuals that would be up there on that roof. And there's some elevation between each of those outdoor spaces to help those feel private and be very usable. What's interesting is that between the two buildings, if you just draw a line across the roof to the building that is less than 35 feet tall on the left, if you go to the very top, because that's really what someone will see when they're walking through the community, they'll see the entire roof, not to the midpoint of the roof. When you look at it that way and you measure across to the same height on the flat roof building, the flat roof building is technically 3 feet 8 inches taller is all. And so, I'm sorry?
Almost 4 feet taller.
3 feet 8 inches taller.
3 feet 8 inches taller, and it's only taller where we have the staircase to get them up onto the roof. Up on the front of the building, it's actually shorter than the sloped roof solution. So the request here would be a little bit different and distinct for these flat roof product. It would be A, to allow the flat roofs. Right now, they're not allowed. And then B, if you were to allow it, to have that measurement be 41 feet 6 inches from the front of finished grade at each of those units.
Can I interject really quickly? We got, and I don't know that the applicant has seen this yet, I have been trying to reach out to the HOA for a few weeks, but we did get a response this morning from the HOA ARC, and they have a concern with the flat roof design that it's not going to match what's in the neighborhood. I just wanted to let you know so that you are informed on their comment, just because it was forwarded to you just a few minutes before the meeting. The applicant does still have that request. We also let them know just today that we got that feedback.
So Sarah, does the flat roof, is it against their architectural HOA covenants?
They don't have that in their covenants for multifamily. They don't have any covenants for multifamily, so it defaults to city code.
Okay.
So that's a hard topic. I don't know what it says for single family in their covenants.
Okay.
Do you have more? Or?
So I think the only concern is, perhaps we would want the HOA on board. Of course, that's up to you. But we heard from the management company too, and they thought that flat roofs were too harsh for the setting, especially considering the existing units. So we did hear those two feedbacks. There's one other I believe it's in your packet, right? One other public comment?
Correct, yeah.
From the former HOA president who also expressed concerns over the flat roofs.
So I think at the end of the day, flat roofs become kind of a personal preference. They're certainly built all over the place in Utah, from Park City to Salt Lake City and many other jurisdictions. They're a popular architectural style for some, right? But the individuals tonight who would be approving this would have to agree with that statement. Certainly not an unusual or undesirable product in many locations throughout the state. And then one other thing that came up during Planning Commission were, I guess, concerns about precedent being set if something like this were to be approved. What is unusual about our application or the application before you tonight is that these may be some of the only townhomes in this PUD. There's perhaps one other site that would allow townhomes in the village's master plan. And this being part of a PUD at our planning commission, that was referred to by staff as being a relic. It's not an entitlement tool that is allowed going forward. And so this would be a very difficult thing to kind of connect dots to say that somehow this request, which we're allowed to make under the PUD, is somehow going to translate and be a precedent-setting issue for other applications that cannot submit under a PUD. That's just simply not allowed. So it's something we are allowed to ask for in the PUD since we are under the PUD. So I just wanted to point that out as just a clarification for something that came up during Planning Commission. And other than that, thank you very much for the opportunity to present our project to you.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we'll start with the council. Councilman McComber.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. On the requesting lot reduction, what additional open space did we receive? Because, or what are we gaining? Because the whole point of a reduction is to get more open space. I'm seeing one park.
And that is a really good question. So the comment, I know that in this plan, you're seeing one park and some trail pathways. The comment applies to the entire master development agreement. So in the entirety, there was 25% open space overall. And then.
The park that's still not developed?
Right, right. And then this phase was granted the density that it has. So I understand what you're saying.
Right, but we don't have to allow for more reduction in lot size. Or do we have to?
Well, we have to allow the density.
We have to allow, but they have to meet code.
So
with that
without, we've kind of run in this before. I think perhaps Kevin should speak to this. Just because the master development agreement grants a certain density, and without some variations, they can't achieve that density. So I think perhaps Kevin should speak to it more.
I haven't analyzed this in the detail that you're probably looking for, but when you're talking about priority of vested rights in this development and in the MDA, density is going to be number one. Density and the types of uses that are allowed, number one. And then as you look at that, you have to weigh that with the rest of the development agreement, including the ability to ask for lot size reductions and so forth. So you have discretion within the code and within the development agreement to grant those or not grant those reductions, or those variations actually is what it's called, so long as it doesn't impair the vested rights. And so I don't know that I could analyze that with the level of detail that you're looking for, but
I'm just seeing a huge request.
If they could prove definitively that denial of a lot size reduction or a variation in the code negatively impairs their vested rights of density, then that would be something you'd have to grant. You'd have to grant that variation.
Well, because they're asking for almost like, it's 40% reduction. 70, from 70 width to 40.
Yeah, now that's another thing I was wondering is in the code, and I don't know if Austin has a response for this, but in the code, it does say that variations are capped at 25%.
I do have a response to that. Okay. That was added to the code after the Fox Hollow Master Development Agreement was approved. And in previous requests, it was determined that they can ask for more than the 25% because of the vesting related to density and the vesting date of the master development agreement.
Yeah,
and that's, sorry, but is that?
I have a response to that as well because in the MDA, because I drafted it, it does say that they're required to comply with the code in effect at the time of a preliminary plat application. So our code can change as long as it doesn't impair the vested rights in the MDA.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because we redid the Fox Hollow Master Development Agreement not too long ago. They had to come in, we redid it. And so you're saying that they have to meet, when they bring an application, that they meet the current code at that time?
And I'd like to look at this more and have more discussions with planning and the developer on it. But right now, you're looking at a concept plan and it's informal comments.
Yeah.
You're not voting on this.
So I understand this is a concept. And so we need to look at that. I want to make sure that we're not just creating a super dense, like with the individual homes, that will destroy any kind of view when you're putting 10 5 feet each with the fence and the houses, it will just shut it down. I get that they have parks other places they're getting credit from. We deal with that all the time. I'm still trying to figure this out. I've been doing this for 15 years. I'm still trying to figure out how we can make sure that future developments don't get to take advantage for parks that still aren't built, i.e. wildflower and other things that are happening. I'm just getting sick and tired of more density coming in with still no parks. I mean, this one little teeny park with all of these townhomes, I think it's craziness. But if they have the right, I can't stop it. But we still need to be looking at that big picture. It's very concerning to me. In terms of height, and I understand the concern. We have that standard because we had people coming in and trying to build up their lots to make them so that the back end, so that they can create their homes, and then they have the bigger house. And then we had people doing games and digging down and doing different things. So we just did to the natural grade because we have pictures. We know what the natural grade is. Our code enforcement, our building planners, inspectors, they have that. They have those numbers. They know what the grade is. So I get that it's frustrating. Houses do have to measure to the midpoint on the side of the house as well. They don't get to have huge advantage. They go to the midpoint of the house and their pitch point. I know this for a fact because I had to build my whole side yard with a huge rock wall because I was on a side and it was pitched too much and I had to put in a rock wall to meet code. And I was on the city council. I was impacted by my own code because I built the house after I was on the city council. So for me, I don't want to open a can. I do appreciate you educating us on the PUD. I know it, but we have some newer council members. I know that it's similar to what happens when, like, the Smiths development, it's protected by this, the fact that it's in a master development agreement and all of this. But it still have other developers will still come and say, hey, they got higher roofs and they got flat roofs and now I want it. We did deny right across the street from this in Talon's Cove. They wanted to do flat roofs. We denied it as well. I know that that's a popular thing, but I've talked to some of my peers in other cities who've had the flat roof products and they regret it. I know that you disagree. You talked about how it's really popular. Another thing I want to point out is there's nothing that will require them to actually put the decks in. They'll get the flat roof benefit, and then a year from now, then when prices of buildings keep going up, they'll say, oh, we need to keep these affordable, so we're taking the decks off because they're extremely expensive. We have a perfect example of that. If you just go over to Wander, there's on their townhomes, there's beautiful decks on the first phase, and on the second and third phases, all decks have been removed. And even though maybe people want them, they don't put them in because it's extremely expensive for the builder. They got the density, they got the zero lot line with the townhomes because that actually touches the other homes next to them, the backyards. We did all these exceptions for them. They got those townhomes, and then they yank out the pretty cool amenity that gets you all excited. So they show these outdoor living spaces, and it's really cool. But there's nothing that we can do to require them to put those in. And I know it's not fair to compare you to other developers, but you're a community and you guys do these things, and it really frustrates me because we give an inch and then we get taken advantage of. So me personally, I just don't want to open up the can. It's just a bad precedent. Even though it is a PUD, other developers will say, hey, you were nicer to them than us, and then it just becomes a us versus them attitude. In terms of I talked about the grade elevation. I do want to, depending on what the rest of the council says, I do want to put a condition that the fire marshal has to approve this. No matter what we say, the fire marshal still needs to say that this will be okay in terms of response times with only one ladder truck in the city. And that needs to be taken into consideration. My last comment is towards staff. I'm really concerned. I've seen it a few times now. I think maybe we need to have a joint session with the Planning Commission. They're doing legislative, they're giving recommendations, just adding 6.5 feet. They shouldn't be doing that. They are recommending body, does it meet current code or does it not? And then that comes to the city council. Every few years, we have to have these sessions because new planning commissioners come along. And I mean, it's a helpful reminder. And one of the key things we ask when we are interviewing planning commissioners is, what is the proper role of the commissioner? And so I would look because we have a former planning commissioner right here. So we just need to make sure that we're not setting, we're not establishing undue expectations from a developer when they're coming in thinking, ooh, well, if we do this, then I'm going to get it approved, when that is our responsibility. Thank you, Mayor, and I turn the time back over to you.
Councilman Wilden?
Just a question for staff. If we were to allow flat roofs, can we require that they have to put in the top deck?
Sure.
I think you can, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, so I get the concern that you're talking about, like, in this particular area, if we go along with flat roofs, I would be okay with it as long as it's tied to you have to install these, otherwise you don't get the occupancy, whatever the correct, what is it before? Occupancy permit, so that you're committed to, hey, we're gonna have outdoor living space, and if we don't put it in, no one can buy this product. That's where I think I could get comfortable with it. And I agree with what the comments you were saying. I think across the street at Talon's Cove, the difference was it was just pure flat roof, no outdoor living space is what they were trying to do.
They had some decks, but not like this kind of.
Right. And so I think that's where I could get comfortable with that. I mean, Kevin, it'd be helpful, I know you can't answer right now, later on to understand the requirements, what we do there. I was looking at it, and at first I was concerned with the reduction in lot size, but you're not using that to increase the townhome product. So,
More, yeah, house is closer, yeah.
yeah, houses closer together.
What's the reduced density?
Well, I guess you are allowable up to 199 single-family, what did I write, SFL? No idea what that means. Single-family homes is what I meant. Yeah, single-family, thank you for interpreting my notes. Down to 172. I guess the question is, if you didn't get like a reduction, either one or the other, what could you actually put in as single-family homes? And then also for staff, what's the consistent size and the surrounding neighborhood for single-family homes? Because I remember over the years, like different Fox Hollow communities come in and we say, okay, as long as it's like generally consistent. Because the PUD is weird, but.
Typically got more open space in those neighborhoods, like parks and like corridors, where we're not getting that here.
Well, and then maybe that's something we could look at, is if we're doing a reduction, what additional amenities in the existing park that you're proposing that you would do? Sorry, that's a loaded like 10 questions. Hopefully someone was taking notes, because I can't repeat what I said.
Well, so to answer one of the things, so in the MDA, it does say that you can have a 35-foot frontage. So a frontage and a lot width, they're two different things, but in many circumstances, a frontage may be the width of a lot. So that's already in the MDA. It does allow 35-foot frontages. So this, where they're saying 40-foot lot width, wouldn't be less than that, which is already in the MDA.
So what we're saying is, hey, do we approve you utilizing what's allowed in the MDA?
So why are we even considering this, if they're allowed it?
So it's because the MDA doesn't, the MDA or the PUD doesn't outline a specific lot width.
We have two.
And so we have,
frontage and lot width.
it's a request that has to come through when a PUD comes through. They have to request a specific lot width.
So
PUDs.
yeah.
Right. We could get rid
So
of,
that probably answers my question before, is we've probably consistently done
we have.
40, okay.
Then I'm okay with the lot width stuff. If it.
We have other phases where we've done
well,
reductions
that's-
of,
That's the PUD.
And keep in mind, you're not making a decision on the variations right now. In the code, it says at the plat application stage, plat approval
giving
stage.
direction,
Right. Now, but some of these questions that you're maybe not as certain on, you'll make that decision later. And you can give direction to staff to look at these things, is what I'm trying to say.
No, and I appreciate that. I'd just rather give that feedback now versus, okay, going through the effort and you guys spending the funds to put together the plat and us coming back and saying, well, no.
This would
Right.
typically-
I got really loud there.
that's the goal, is that they have enough feedback to
This
feel
would be a work
comfortable
session.
proceeding.
And
Yeah.
on the lot size going from 10 to 4.2, I mean, based upon the concept, you're not doing 4.2 across the whole. It looks like that would be closer to, I don't know, I'm not an architect, but it doesn't look like they'd all be 4.2.
Right, that's the smallest, so they have to put in their request for the smallest.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, I would presume there'd be a variety of sizes, lot sizes across.
40, 50, and 60 foot is what's on
Yeah.
what's on the application.
And then we'll know what percentage is, what, Stephen
Width.
asked, what percentage is 40, what percentage is?
Yeah, and sorry, I wasn't I was speaking banking lingo there. I don't know what I was speaking. I was talking about the lot size, 10,000 square foot going to 4.2.
And how many of those are like?
Yeah.
If we go back to my slide show, on the first slide, where it shows the concept plan, up in the top right, there's a box that shows what percentage it's 40 foot. It's really small, so I apologize, you probably can't see it from there.
75, 43 that are 50 feet wide, and then 54 that are 60 feet wide. And then you can see the ranges too, so the minimum is 4,200 to 4,900, and then 5,300 to 7,000, and then 6,600 to 7,000.
Okay.
Ish, right, on the lot sizes, a little more than what I said, but.
Well, yeah, and it's just a concept, so there's a good variety. That's all I have for now.
Okay, Councilwoman Barton?
So I don't love flat roofs, but I love outdoor usable space, right? So like for that thing, I love that idea about it. And I think nowadays when this is more of what people have to buy, right? I love that we're offering something like an outdoor living space. And I actually really appreciate that they're private. That's a big thing as well. So again, I don't love flat roofs. I probably would never even talk about it if it was not the outdoor living space that was included with it, but I really love that part about it. But I do really appreciate the feedback from the HOA, and so I don't know, like that, like I respect these HOAs and they have their, I mean, I guess that's my concern is that and again, because I mean, in the past, how have we worked with the HOAs on this?
We try and listen to
That's why I asked, do the HOAs have any covenants against it?
Yeah.
If they don't,
Then we can do whatever, but do we still, yeah,
But they can ask us to.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
from maybe, I would treat them as like any other residence. Hey, here's our preference. If it's
Right,
not
okay.
prohibited in code, it's
And
just,
it's kind of like just
it's
feedback.
their preference.
Well, and we try and keep things similar to
Yeah.
the surrounding area. You don't want to create an island of something different compared to everything else around it. Because a lot of people bought homes expecting a certain kind of look and feel in that neighborhood, and then all of a sudden, we're drastically changing it from traditional to very modern.
But all my other things were answered as we talked about it. So thanks. I love the outdoor living space. Don't love flat roofs, so I do love that outdoor space. So,
Councilman Wadman?
So the question I have is, where these proposed buildings are going to be right on the east side, there's a road behind them, right? Is that on the east side, towards Redwood Road, there's a road that goes before the commercial, right? And then on
Correct,
the
yeah.
other side of that, it says private or guest parking. So is there going to be guest parking, a road, and then the homes? Is that what I'm?
Correct, yeah. So that white spot at the bottom of the screen, that's designated to be commercial in a future phase. And so there would be kind of a buffer in between the commercial and the residential, which would be that green strip you see there. But inside that green strip, there's little pink boxes. Those are the guest parking. They're proposing putting the guest parking across that roadway there.
Okay.
To be crossing.
So you'd have,
is that going to be
Well-
a private road or a public road?
Private?
Private road.
And it doesn't go all the way through either. It looks like it connects on the south side, but not on the
yeah.
side,
It
right?
doesn't connect on Village Parkway.
Right.
No.
No, yeah, you can see how it kind of, I don't know if you can see it, but it actually reduces in width when it goes from public to private. And so basically, everything on the bottom of the screen, mostly in front of those townhomes, is private.
And do we expect that commercial area, I mean, depends on what's approved and what goes in there. Very likely it could supersede the height or match the height of those townhomes, right?
Well, we have the same height requirements.
Do we? Okay, but it's still, I'm just trying to, big picture, so. I have lived in a home with a flat roof that had open space on the top when I lived in a different community. To me, it was a blessing because I didn't have a lot of places to go. So I don't like, once again, the flat roofs. It's not a pattern that we follow here in Saratoga, but with the outdoor space, I'm, like others have mentioned, it's more attractive to me.
Councilman Carn?
Yeah, so PUD, look at it a little different. I'm okay with the height issue because of the slope of this piece of property. I don't think you're really causing an issue for people. And I like this buffer between the commercial and the single family. And in my opinion, I like that flat roof outdoor living. I don't, in this particular spot. I do want to address a couple things we heard earlier tonight with this development. We can't make this developer make improvements to Redwood Road. We can't make this developer make improvements to other outside roads. So that's not something we do, and frankly, we can't not deny a vested right because of schools. So I hear all those issues, but there's certain things we can and can't do.
And I
But-
appreciate staff's response.
Yeah.
Because they did a really good job outlining the limitations. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
But other than that, I actually like this. I like that flat roof product. I think it looks good, and I like that outdoor living. I would like to see, I'd like to see how trails would go through here if we're gonna have an actual sidewalk through the green spaces to get up to that, I think that's Sage Hills, right?
Sage Hills Elementary, yeah.
Yeah.
And a future major park.
And a future major park, right. So if we're gonna have these green spaces, I'd like to have trail system through there, right? My other question is on a flat roof, because I've never experienced one. Occasionally we get snow, and when those things fill up with snow, how do the residents remove it? I mean, are they just shoveling over the top and dropping it off the side of the building?
That's a good question. Yeah,
There's not a place up there to push it to.
what I've seen is that the snow builds up and then it's not used during the winter, and then as it melts.
And it's engineered for the snow load and all that.
Yes,
I get that.
100%, yep, and the
It's
drainage.
engineered for the snow load to a degree, not 30-year storm snow loads.
Potentially, yeah.
But then, and the commercial have drainage systems that drain off the roof out onto the, but they don't do that. This drains.
So this would not have drainage off that flat roof?
It would absolutely, it would
Well, no, but
absolutely have drainage
Not a
off.
commercial drainage though.
Oh.
It
I did
can be,
tour-
but they usually use
product.
downspouts.
They use
They have
Not this.
heated strips inside them.
These downspouts-
I did tour a flat roof product recently, and not in Saratoga, and.
Of course you didn't. Of course you didn't hear, 'cause there aren't any.
Right, just for fun, I toured a flat roof product, but they did have a drain, so they would just, and I asked some of those questions, and it had nothing to do with this, I was just curious.
Yeah.
And so you would just kind of shovel your snow to a corner, and there is a roof drain, and then as it melts, it would go down the roof
Okay.
drain.
It's just a residential downspout roof drain, it's not like a commercial grate size or, Not
Well,
what
it
you looked
wasn't
at.
commercial grade, but it was still kind of like sloped to a drain.
Okay.
It was somewhat central to the space. I'm sure every design could be different, but that was how the one I looked at was.
and to be clear, you're not involved at all in this commercial property. You don't own that section?
0.
Okay.
Okay. Mark?
I just wanted to comment real quick, and the commercial is likely going to drive some requirements on Redwood Road. So it may not be triggered by this. Obviously, the transportation study or the traffic study could say, hey, maybe they need it. I don't know that they're necessarily proposing any connection from Redwood up to the residential neighborhood at this point, but the commercial will likely trigger that. That will likely trigger XL and decel lanes when that comes in. And so those Redwood Road improvements would come in time, but probably not with this unless their traffic study indicated a need for it. But that's something that would be looked at later in the process.
We do have 2 feeders into that commercial property, possibly, right?
Potentially.
Okay.
I think that the transportation is part of the master development agreement. They already met it from the email that I read.
Oh, my other question, we just extended the MDA. We didn't open it and redo it, right?
No.
We didn't reach, we didn't.
We just extended it.
But
We
then when
extended it and we added some conditions.
We added the condition.
Yeah. Okay.
And the property owners did dedicate Foothill Boulevard, or Mountain View Corridor
Right,
portion of it,
right, okay.
and we insisted on that.
So that's another one of those things that came about with that.
Right.
And it will develop when that road gets pulled
Remember we
further
did the
south.
exchange with some commercial and all that.
And then we also required, because the city is obligated to improve the 25-acre park, but we also required that dedication to happen before the MDA was extended.
So has that been dedicated?
It has been.
But the MDA doesn't require to do that till a certain percentage of build out.
We have to receive, what, 1,000 homes built or something like that?
Right.
It's, I think.
What would this put it at?
2,000.
This density coming in would put us at what-ish?
About 1,000.
We're
About halfway.
there.
I think it was 2,000. I'll have to double check that, but it was
Okay.
But there's already a whole bunch of other
very, very
homes.
high.
There's already all the other
That's what I'm
homes.
saying. What
Right.
does this put us at?
This might put us over. Because this is about 1,000 people.
No,
No,
this is
sorry.
couple
This plus what we already have will put us at about 1,000. I can double check, but
So about
if I'm remembering
We're
right.
halfway there.
Yeah.
Huh?
When did you guys discuss this?
This was probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We can bring
So
that back.
we're about halfway to the required density to build that other park.
Because we're required to build that part.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, okay.
Okay, Councilwoman Barton?
Just have a quick, this doesn't really change anything. I'm just actually curious why build instead of the pitched roof a flat roof? I honestly, it has nothing to do with anything except that I'm curious why you guys would want to do that.
Why do it?
Yeah, like just.
We think it
see
appeals-
people want out, yeah.
Yeah, we think
Okay.
there's demand for it. We think that buyers would like to have that. Those that do want to have that, that's a huge amenity to their
It is huge,
lifestyle
yeah.
in that building. And so where you have such a unusual location to be able to capture
Well,
incredible
the views are amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're unbelievable. And so to be able to have product that's responsive to what is in that community and kind of showcase it, it really seems like a strong opportunity.
Isn't there a way that maybe some of the other flat ones that don't have the deck on, they can have a pitched, like, I mean, if you look at Talon's Cove, right, they did flat stuff, but then they had a certain amount of pitching, like just to create a look of a slope for the snow, and just the deck portions can be flat. So that might be a way for them to get around that.
Well, they can. We talked about that with them a little bit, but it actually made that part that's, let me go to an
The stairs.
elevation. It made it even taller. So because they need the wall to be a certain height, and so it made some of the, for the door, that's what it was. So in order to have
'Cause already they
that
need-
space
already
as
need a-
usable, they
already
need
need
a
6 feet more.
door at a certain height. So then you'd have to put a pitch roof on this part, and it made it even taller.
So they're already asking for 6.5 feet, then it would even be more.
Right.
Thank you. I just was curious.
So we've got all the direction clear as mud.
Can we just kind of go for sure on the flat roofs versus pitch, just so,
I think there's 3 people saying that they would be okay with
3 or
flat roofs.
4?
As long as, we put
As long as it's
That
required.
they have to do the outdoor living.
And don't take this offensively, you'll get 4-1, you'll get it passed, but I will be voting against it because I believe that I've been doing this 15 years, I will have other developers who aren't in a PUD asking for it and saying, it's not fair, you're treating me differently than that. So it's purely that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Sarah?
She had other things to go through.
no, I'm good. That was everything on that one.
I think on the roofs, they're gonna be okay. With an exception for the
The
height.
height, yeah.
I mean,
Because of the slope of that property.
because the visual.
It's not going to do anything.
Visualing of it will not be a negative.
Yeah.
And we do, as staff, we want to bring the height definition to you. We've been running into some problems, so we'll do a separate work session on that.
And even though, because half of your lots are really narrow, if you could not have them be like 8 in a row, if you really could try and look at it's a lot of it's topography.
Just four?
No, on the houses is where the lot reduction happens, to down to a 40-foot wide.
You're suggesting staggering them
I just
throughout-
noticed that you had like 8 of the really narrow houses together. So, when you're just looking at it, I know it's topography too, because you're using the new house grade and like little retaining walls and stuff. But, you can see over here that on Village, there's like a whole bunch of the really narrow ones, because you can see where the wider ones are and the narrow ones. Just, if you can avoid a townhome feel of a bunch of little homes, because it will feel more like a wall than.
Can I speak to that? It's a very good point that you bring up. We actually looked at it. Is it okay for me to speak to it?
This is a work session, so it's more
Okay,
good.
yeah, I wasn't sure how fluid this is, but if you think of going from the commercial to the school on the north, or on the west side of this property, we're most dense than the most, with our townhomes.
Narrow lots.
Then the narrow lots, then the 50-foot wide lots, then the 60-foot wide lots. some of what you don't see, so there's a nice transition there.
Feathering.
But some of what you don't see on here and that we haven't talked about is that the street, when it comes from Swainston up by where the school is, it has to capture a ton of grade coming down. I have to put my widest lots there so that I can come across those lots and pick up that grade. In the flattest part of the site is where I'm putting our narrowest lots because it's flat. And so I can actually have those lots there. It would really, I would end up with more narrow lots to keep the same unit count, but to address, if I was to put those, the narrower lots up around the corner, I would have to actually have a lot more narrow lots in that makeup. And we're trying to keep them
It makes sense.
broken down a little bit.
And I mean, obviously, it's like, we can't control this as much, but we have a little bit of control where you don't put like the exact same house, like 5 in a row. And developers often say they make sure they spread them out, but then you go to them and then the buyer comes in and says, well, I want that house right here. And then you guys just do it because you want to sell the lot. So it's like, if you guys just can make sure that it creates, because single stories and then the 2 stories, it'll just create a much less dense feel. I just don't want to, already, I mean, I have a resident who came in who doesn't want any of this. But we can't stop it. And then right now, I'm basically, as a council, we're basically saying, not only can we not stop it, we're giving more. So the residents, the HOA and a resident came in, what are we doing? Like, but at the same time, we're limited on what we can do. And so we're going against what the HOA said, we're going against what the resident who came in and actually took time out of his night.
The PUD limits us a little bit here.
Right, but we're still allowing flat roofs. The HOA didn't want that. The resident didn't want the densities, you know, and we're saying, oh, we'll allow a lot more small lots. And so it can create a more dense feel. So what I'm just saying is, with your housing choice on those 40, it will make it look less dense and it would be more appealing to the neighbors. And I think when it actually comes in, I sort of joke, it's like when people hated when like the temples coming in, but when the temples do come in, their house prices go up and they're like really happy. But they're negative against it, not as much in Utah, but I lived it outside of Utah. People hate it and then all of a sudden they love it, right? So this product potentially can end up being really good and really be a nice asset to the community. But right now they're asking us not to do it and we are. We're basically snubbing our noses at them, and I want to be able to go to them and say, I did all I could to try and make this as positive as possible.
Thank you. I think, Mayor, we've got what we need to
Okay.
work with the applicant on the next phase.
Perfect. Thank you. Great. Yep. Okay, item 2, we're moving to our next meeting for the business items, the sign. Kevin said we didn't need to. Can you just move it to the next meeting, item 2, or do you want to vote?
You already made that decision as the mayor, so.
Okay.
If you want to do it for the sake of being as detailed as possible, take a vote. It wouldn't take long.
No.
I would like it to come back sooner than later. I don't want to
next
table.
meeting.
Okay.
So in 2 weeks. Item 3, amendments to Title 19, IADUs.
It's just us cleaning things up.
Yeah.
Okay. Mayor and council, you've already seen this. We've talked about it in our work session in, in August. So just a few things we're doing to the code, removing the verbiage that relates to an ability to request amendments to our IADU map. And then removing actually the map itself because it is kind of a stagnant map and just leaving the reference to the code section online where they can see the interactive map. And we're changing actually the format of the map, not just to be colored blob over the whole area, but identifying each lot specifically by a certain color, depending on its size and whether it is in the area that is permitted or prohibited. So it'll be a better map.
Through our GIS.
Yes. So you can't read all of this, but intentionally it's just showing this whole section of the, yeah. All of that refers to either the map itself or the process for requesting a map amendment. So and then here's more that continues on. So what's left is just that first paragraph on the last page, and then the development requirements for new development areas. And then we are just saying the map's not attached below, but it's at this link. So crossing out the map.
This is what you asked us to do. That's great. take that out, and future councils can come back and circle back if they want to include that
Cleaning up.
process.
We had a knee-jerk reaction when this was all coming. I think we overed it, and now we're just.
And at the same time, we got a lot of landowners. We only have water to a certain build-out. We do need to protect the landowners' rights
Yes.
for future development.
And
We don't need to
it-
cram everything in what we have.
It is in the staff report, just the planning commission did review this at their meeting early in September. They, by majority, made a negative recommendation on that, so.
Okay.
Any
If you'd
questions?
like,
Any questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code, Business Item 3, as listed on the state agenda, ordinance 24-40.
I have a first from Councilwoman McComber.
Second.
Oh, with staff findings and conditions, sorry.
Okay.
Whoever
Second from
has it, yeah.
Councilwoman Barton. Any further discussion? Barton?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have item 4, the general plan land use map amendment.
Okay, again, in August at our work session, we talked about this general plan amendment. So it's for that area south of current city boundaries down in the Pelican Point area, 641 or 642 acres. And just kind of moving some land uses around, but specifically removing high density and medium density and limiting or reducing the amount of mixed waterfront, which does permit some medium density. So here's what it is currently, showing the uses of medium density and high density in brown, light brown and dark brown. And then you'll see the blue, a large area of the mixed waterfront in this area. This is what we talked about at the meeting, is that we'll move the business park over, have the regional commercial on both sides of where the roadway will go through on Mountain View Corridor, and then rural residential south of that area.
And Mayor, I just want to point out, we do have a tremendous amount of density that's vested with Teguile there.
Yeah.
And so with the mixed waterfront and with Teguile, we have an enormous amount of density already approved in that portion of the city. And per your direction, this is what we're bringing back for your approval tonight.
Perfect.
Planning Commission heard this, they recommend approval.
I think this is what we were looking at. I'll entertain a motion.
I'm really impressed. I mean, people complain about how cities can really move slowly. I just want to thank staff. I mean, we talked about this in August, and
and they'll
October
be back.
1st, 2nd. This is great. Thank you.
I'll move that we approve business item 4 as stated on the agenda, including any staff findings and conditions.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden,
Second.
second from Councilman Wadman. Any further discussion? Wadman?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Barton?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code for the Gateway Overlay Parking.
Okay, another one that's coming back to you. This one, we heard at the last meeting, there was some concern about the verbiage that was being proposed for amending the parking situation there. So it's a bit more lengthy than what the original proposal was, but I think it kind of covers our bases. So if you're comfortable with what we presented in the packet, I'm good, but I can go ahead and read through it just to make sure.
I could just,
Yeah, here, go ahead, Steve.
well, I'll just summarize. It's basically what we talked before, but said if it has to go to one of the larger roads, it has to be screened by a berm of at least 3 feet.
Because it wasn't required to be a berm. It could have just been bushes and some trees, and those die, we know that. So it has to be a berm.
Right.
And Stephen and I, and we both felt really good about it.
Yeah.
so.
And also that traffic report will be required if it's on 2 arterials of the same classification.
And then whichever one is the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Perfect. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve item 5, business item 5, as stated on the agenda, ordinance 24-45, with all staff findings.
I have a first from McComber, second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? Wilden?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Barton?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Sarah? So the developer that this one was particularly impacting,
You can
do
let
we
them know.
have to go, now is it approved conditional on this, or do they have to come back?
Because they had other reasons too, yeah.
So, from my memory, all they would need to do is put a berm in.
There was some other issues.
Oh, you found some other,
Okay,
okay.
perfect. Okay, I need a, well, we got a closed session.
Yeah, motion.
So made.
Yep. I have a first from Councilman McComber,
Second.
second from Councilwoman Barton, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.